Welcome to the Town of Stockbridge Firehouse Building Committee meeting on September 10th of this year. And I'm going to read off the hybrid meeting rules for open meeting pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, subsection 20F. After notifying the chair of the public body, any person may record or transmit this open meeting. The hybrid meeting is being recorded by the Town of Stockbridge. The names of members participating remotely will be announced. We don't have any of our members on remotely today. Any member of the public wishing to speak must first receive permission from the chair. The agenda items listed are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, but not all may be discussed, and other topics not listed may be brought up for discussion by the public body as permitted by law. And having said that, call the meeting to order. Have a second?
Second.
Okay. We're on. The meeting minutes from last
I would
meeting.
make a motion that we approve the minutes of August 27th.
A second.
Very good.
Approved.
So an update on the request for proposal for owner's project manager. So we last meeting, we all voted, this committee voted to recommend to the selectmen that we proceed with an owner's project manager in advance of doing a feasibility study. I've since spoken with Michael Canales, and he's notified the select board of that. And he's currently working on a request for proposal. And we'll stir up some interest with various firms and get some feedback on that. Scott or Jay, do you have anything to add to that?
The only question is, we don't know what the OPM fee is going to be. And Michael and I have spoken that if we need some more funds, we'll convene a finance committee meeting, to get monies from the reserve fund to finance this thing.
Fantastic. But that will be a function of the finance committee.
Yeah. Well, a recommendation
to the
select board.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So I think that's their update. And then, we wanted to continue the discussion of the potential building sites for the feasibility study. I think we have a bit of time on that and would like to start to include the selectmen in other further discussions, at least get someone from the select board to attend our meetings, or us attend one of their meetings and start to discuss that. We know that we'll consider the feasibility study, will consider our existing stations, our facilities that we already have, town-owned property, and potentially privately owned land that fit the criteria of previous studies as to the best location for a new building. Hey, there's Bruce.
You were too quiet.
Hey, Bruce.
It's good to see you, Bruce. So,
I actually put you down as remote. I erased remote.
Really?
so Bruce, we were just, we just started the discussion and basically moved on from how we voted for the owner's project manager.
Yep.
Last meeting, and Jay and I have both separate conversations with Michael Canales are moving that forward.
Good.
And then we moved on to a discussion about the building sites. And I think that and you guys can comment otherwise, but I'm thinking that at this point, we may want to bring in at least a member of the select board for those discussions when identifying properties that do not belong currently to the town of Stockbridge.
Okay.
Because ultimately, they will be the ones to make the decision on which properties are considered in the feasibility study. We're
Yep.
only going to make the recommendation. And in fact, if we do purchase private lands in the future, they'll do the negotiation on that. So.
Speaking of properties, and we may have mentioned this before, but I keep passing by it on my way to that delicious new ice cream place in West Stockbridge, LMA's. Does the Botanical Garden own that parcel right at the intersection of 183 and 102 that they use for parking?
Yes. There is, last week we talked briefly about it, another parcel adjacent to that is jointly owned by the Laurel Hill Association and the Land Trust. And it's a piece of land that's 2 acres in size. It's just pretty close to being ideal.
Yes, and the location is
is
absolutely ideal.
But, as I said, this, to pursue that, that's entirely on the select board to do that. But we'd like to identify that as one of the potential properties moving forward. And we also like to have, at some point here, we'd like to have the OPM on board as part of those discussions for direction. But I think that big topic for tonight would be we have the chief, fire chief here, Vinny Garofoli, and we have Kevin again, and talk a little bit about what you guys think that we need just to the board. This is not cast in stone. It's just the starting base. It's the basis of the wish list. So if one of you would like to.
And Clarence certainly already.
I didn't see the article.
You did not see his article?
Yeah.
He certainly outlined pretty much what was in Scott's minutes from last meeting of the things that were to be included. So it's already been put out there in the public arena, at least for anyone that reads the Eagle, that what we would like to have, 6 bunks and blah, blah, blah. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
I've had a couple people reach out to me and offer further suggestions of things that they may like to see, at least as a conversation point. Of course I didn't say it, but I've heard some people mention some sort of on-site live burn facility so we can do some actual live fire training. Maybe something as simple as a couple shipping containers. But that would have to be incorporated into the amount of land we have, because I'm sure there'd be proximity issues. I've also heard some sort of an EMS simulation lab so that we could practice the real world skills on mannequins that give.
Come on, Annie, wake up.
And just little creature comforts with like storage for EMS supplies. But that's really about all I've heard outside of what was published in the paper.
Yeah, Vinny, you and I had a discussion about, some other possibilities as well, communications that we'd like to go
So
ahead.
I'm very much about multitasking with space.
and getting the biggest bang for the buck in terms of tax dollar being spent on things. So one of the things that I'm suggesting and that I back fully is a tower that would serve three purposes. So the tower would be attached to the central station, but it would have a door capable of being isolated from the rest of the building so that if we wanted to smoke out the building with fog machine smoke, we could without setting off the fire alarm. But the multi-use tower would be a training tower. The center would have the ability to be used for hose drying. So you could use it as a hose tower, hanging hose to dry after fire, so it's not laying in the base. And then the third use of the tower would be attached to the top of it or the side, depending on the design preference, would be the radio communications portion of it. So you don't have an independent communications tower on site. You would have it incorporated right into the existing tower that you use for training, for hose drying, and for evolution for refuse too. So you can do mock rescues. It would have a doorway and a window out to the parking lot area, so you can throw ladders up, do extrications and rescues. It would be a very multi-use tower attached to it. And by attaching it directly instead of independently, you don't have the navigation use issue of trying to work around the parking lot. And then you don't have the extra added siding and everything else of the side, at least one side. So it would serve to save a lot of money, but get multi-uses out of it. So it would be used almost daily.
Yeah, great idea.
The other major thing to me is communications and future communications. We are in this county about to embark on a major venture of switching over from simplex radio system to the trunked 800 megahertz system on the Comir's state system. So our dispatch centers are going to be switching over to Comir's. The dates keep getting kicked around, but there's no hard, fast date set yet, but PD will transition before fire.
Yeah, Vinny, for those on the committee that may not be familiar with that, give a little history on that 800
So-
communication.
The 800 megahertz system was predominantly used by state agencies, and MSP, Massachusetts State Police, is the most common one we see throughout, plus emergency management as well. And basically, it was the state set out a long time ago to make interoperability across the whole state, so that I could talk to you on the Cape and you could talk to me in the Berkshires when we had incidents and issues that involved needing to have communications across the whole state. So the state started to build out under the 911 system to build out a radio system that could be used throughout the whole state and have redundancy and reliability so that in major incidents of storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, power outages, brownouts of large areas, we don't lose radio communications and you don't have to maintain several outside networks. So in the build out phase of this, they started at the eastern end of the state. They're working their way out to us at the western end of the state to get that Comir system fully functional and operational. There's been major upgrades to the system that are still ongoing and probably will be forever because stuff has expiration dates on it. But they're predicted.
Plus the technology improves.
Yes, but they're predicted to have well over 93% reach out here in the Berkshires with a portable radio, which is a lower wattage radio than what's in the trucks and in the stations by the end of 2026 was the original rollout. I don't know how they're progressing. We've got a representative from Comir's coming to the next Chiefs Association. So I'll be able to speak more clearly on that subject at a different meeting.
I remember when I was the vice chair of the MCAB, the Emergency Medical Care Advisory Board for the state, that we were in the process of rolling that out for the eastern side of the state. And it was an incredible system.
I would submit, relative to Vinnie's comment, that the statewide, the communications is critical.
Yes.
I.e. the recent tornado watch where emails came from you, text messages relative to warning. So, this has a lot of uses beyond, this function.
Correct.
Also weather related and so forth. Very important.
And on the technology note, that tornado warning message was sent from the line at Target in Hadley.
Fantastic.
You have those things right to your phone. And with the networks we've got in place and the emergency communications networks, you're capable of multitasking from any location. If you've got a cell signal, you've got the ability to transmit.
Important.
So the radio communications room would be a major asset, and it would also be multi-use as well, because not only would it serve as our communications room, but we would have the ability to dispatch ourselves out in the case that the dispatch center should have a malfunction of any kind, which is abnormal, but it's not unforeseeable. It has happened in the past when the 911 system dropped out. We had people manning stations during that 911 brownout a couple of years back now. It would give us the ability to dispatch our own calls. And it would also give us the ability to have an emergency operations center in a big event or anything of substantial nature, long duration. So it would be used for not just us, but emergency management could partner in. And if need be, town services in a large scale event, use that as the emergency ops center for everybody.
Critical.
Coordinate services from that.
So along with your system, Vinny, would you be suggesting that you have a designated communications room for this?
Correct.
Or
Yeah, just-
a
yeah.
fusion center, so to
Yes.
speak?
Exactly. And it would be somewhat interior to the building so that it would be protected in the case of shear winds or whatever. But it would be on the backup generation, whatever we decide we're going to use for backup generation as well. So everything in that room would be seamless should there ever be an issue.
Scott, did you do any research on GETS?
I did not. Thank you for sending that to me, though, but I have not had a chance to,
Okay. You're familiar with the GETS program?
other than to briefly look it up to find out what it was.
I am not, I'm sorry.
It's GETS stands for Government Emergency Technology System. And it's a system that the feds have set up that allows people that enroll in it, and you've got to be the right kind of person to be enrolled in it, you know, emergency department chief, fire chief, whatever. And it basically allows you, your cell phone with your GETS number, your GETS card and your GETS number, prioritizes all of your calls over anything else that's going on in the system.
FirstNet on steroids.
So yeah, we've heard the simpler version of that for simple communications of FirstNet, which was a government thing, but it was a smaller version of that. That sounds more in depth.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, because when I was chief of the emergency department and the various other roles that I had at Sturdy, I had a card, my emergency management person had a card, and we had our own cards with our codes in there. And so we could just go on our phone and basically plug in the numbers, and our calls got priority over any other calls that were out there.
That's amazing.
And so it's a very valuable thing, and it doesn't cost anything. You know, it's just a matter of filling out the application. You have to be verified for obvious reasons. And then, you know, it's something that you can, that could potentially be beneficial, particularly in times when you've got brownouts or anything else.
And I could definitely see the value in that from Tanglewood, Marion operations.
Correct.
Large scale events where you have one tower serving hundreds and thousands of people.
Correct.
That would be extremely valuable.
Yeah.
So
That's something the OPM would look at relative to the location versus the transmission capabilities and receipt capabilities of communication material.
correct.
You know, that we don't know how much we need at this point.
Currently, we have one of the retransmission hubs and card centers in our central station for the Comier system. So the radio communications in this area of town on this elevation are excellent. We're
Good.
not going to get any better than what we have
That's
here in the
important.
center of town. Because we have that tower off of our station. So.
Good to know.
Excellent.
And it's my understanding that once a new station is built, that the plans for Central Station would be that the town retains the building because it has storage value. So that tower and everything and the Comier system would still be able to function where it is. So, because I did bring that up when we started this planning phase of that discussion.
So you wouldn't be looking to move any existing equipment, communications
No,
equipment?
we would leave the existing in place from the Comier side because that's state run through a lease with the town for that portion of the building at Central. Plus, there's an internet hub through the state internet system in that building as well. So I wouldn't be looking, and from what I understand, the town is not looking to shift those leases or change that at this point. So they're
That
looking
was,
for it to be.
that was something that has probably been in there, what do you think, 10 years now?
I'd say a decade or
Yep.
more.
Yeah.
So. But,
So,
the other things that we have talked about, is bay space. And, creation of bay space, not just for today, but for future use. And the idea is that we want to consolidate all of our equipment into one centralized location. That includes both trailer equipment and rolling apparatus or self-contained apparatus that can drive themselves. So all of our engines and everything. So my suggestion would be 4 double bays on this station so that you can house an ambulance, a backup ambulance, both of your smaller trailers with your bigger trailer as well, and the truck that pulls it, and then your 2 bays for your emergency apparatus that would be for fire response.
so for those folks that will listen to this later, the recorded version, Vinnie, can you explain, what you carry in those trailers?
Sure. So currently we have 2 trailers. One is smaller and that carries a hose roller and its associated component. And the other one is a much larger trailer, about 20 feet or so, that carries the Polaris Ranger UTV, a Honda Foreman ATV, and forestry equipment in the nose of the trailer, along with forestry hose down the sides of it. So that particular trailer is multi-use, like we've been discussing, for both rescues, personnel transport and off-road situations, and brush fire usage as well. The truck that pulls it is also multi-use. It's set up to be brush fire during the brush fire season and ice rescue during the winter season. So all that equipment, plus we have a boat that's on a trailer as well, which is an 18-foot Zodiac inflatable boat that has a 50 horsepower 2-stroke motor for propulsion. And those would also need to be stored indoors. The largest trailer would be preferred to be stored indoors because of its size. It takes up a lot of room. So it would be nice to have it indoors next to the vehicle that's going to be towing it. Be much easier to hook up that way. 2 ambulances. We plan on maintaining a backup ambulance. We have a backup ambulance currently. That backup ambulance, because we are not licensed as an ambulance service yet, had the identification of ambulance removed from the vehicle so that we can still use it for people transport, equipment and other things for now.
But not patient transport?
No,
Okay.
not patient transport. Anything with the Stars of Life, term ambulance, or anything of that nature has been removed from that vehicle so that it can be used strictly as a fire vehicle, and it is registered as a fire department vehicle. It will, however, be able to be readily equipped to become an ambulance once we become an ambulance service and can license the vehicle appropriately. The next one we have is an ambulance that was put on order back after July 1st of this year. And that ambulance will serve as our primary ambulance once we are up and running. The idea is 5-year replacements. So the backup ambulance that we currently have would only be a backup ambulance for 5 years. And at the end of that 5-year period, primary ambulance would become the backup and then the new ambulance would take over. So, and what they find with ambulances is regardless of the mileage, the internal components, because you have 2 different systems interacting, between 5 and 7 years, especially in our climate, with the amount of salt they're exposed to during inclement weather in the winter, 5 to 7 years is about the time in which your repairs start becoming more than the value. And that's why the 5 years suggested replacement.
Okay.
Just from my own knowledge, what's the warranty on an ambulance?
It's usually a term period and it all depends on components. You have several different components in the ambulance that'll be warranted differently. Oftentimes, if you get a cabin chassis and you don't alter the cabin chassis in any way, your cabin chassis warranties would be the same as if you bought the vehicle off the lot of the
Right.
dealership. But if you have to alter any of that, your factory warranties become void. So most of the time with these custom boxes, something gets altered, a frame rail, a cross member, something usually gets altered. So most of the time it's up to the vehicle manufacturer, and most vehicle manufacturers offer between a 1 and 5 year warranty, depending on the component.
Thank you.
I had something and I lost it.
But yeah, so beyond base space, we've already talked about communication, which is highly important. We've talked about the multi-use tower, which will serve to be a major asset to the station and to the membership moving forward. In terms of creature comforts, my only major suggestions, besides what's already been mentioned of 6 bunk rooms, the reason for the number 6, people are going to want to know why 6. The reason for the number 6 is because currently, maximum, once we get set up, any given shift could have potentially 3 people on per shift. So the reason why I'm saying 6 is because if you have a storm or you have anything major coming in and you may hold the crew before or call in the crew coming in next early, you could potentially have 6 people that are going to need to be afforded the ability to rest at any given point. So it's not obviously going to be used every day as 6 bunks, but it will in a pinch be needed.
And to piggyback onto that, it allows us room to grow in the future.
And it accommodates the shift nature of the work. So,
Correct.
you're not sharing a bunk with other members.
No, and you make yourself a little bit recession proof. So with the changes that are coming with the Medicare payments and the medical system too, if other services that are on the brink do fade away or have to close or you unify with other services, it gives us the ability to absorb some of that on our own without having to reconstruct the building in the process of doing so. So there is some future involved there.
And
Even if you don't call somebody in early or have to keep somebody over late, I mean, if somebody's pulling a night shift and they've had a busy night shift, so they really haven't had time to rest, and the day shift comes in and the person wants to take a nap before they get on the road, go home again. I mean, you can accommodate them. I mean, it's a safety issue and accommodation for people that are really putting their life on the line.
Correct. I totally agree.
The other thing that we haven't discussed that we should keep back here is any building that we develop, we need to have parking for
Correct.
the participants' vehicles. You know, you're talking about six rooms, 6 bunks, if you will. You need that plus more. So that's gotta be part of the plan.
Yeah.
That was also one of the reasons in my thought process of keeping all the equipment that we have, whether outdoor use or parking or not, inside the building, because it's less obstacles in the parking lot and you can limit your parking lot space a little bit. Because I know impervious surface is a major concern for conservation and other elements of the property as well. And I'd
Yep.
like to minimize our footprint as much as we can safely.
Sure. And Vinny, I wanted to ask you, because I know you keep these records. Currently, what is the call volume in Stockbridge overall for medical versus fire call?
So typically in Stockbridge, we have a unique situation where 50% fire, 50% EMS. Within 2% in any given year. This year, we're actually heavy. We're around that almost 53 to 54% medical this year, which is a little bit higher than normal years, but not abnormal overall. And given the fact that we had below a 600 year last year, but we're heading towards a 600 call year this year, that's right around 300 to 305 calls just in medical this year. And of those calls, from previous studies of our own records, because we don't have a real easy way of determining because we don't transport, Of that, 75 to 80% have been at the ALS or needed a paramedic level, at least an assessment at the very least. So of that 300 calls, you're looking at probably 250 of those being ALS or paramedic level calls to some extent. And West Stockbridge is actually heavier on medical than they are fire calls. So they are almost 75% medical versus 25% fire. And their call volume ranges from anywhere from about 150 to 200 calls. But that was also shared with Richmond, so it's tough to ascertain how many of
Exactly.
those were strictly West Stockbridge calls. This is the first year that they have been independent. So even though they share the command structure of Scott, myself, and Deputy Mahar, we have their tones set separately and their calls set separately, so we can accurately track what their actual call volume is independently of everybody else.
And that,
So
Is
at the
there
end-
Is their population similar demographically
it's within
to
a
ours?
couple hundred of ours, yeah.
It's
And
very
the
similar.
square mileage is
Interesting.
actually somewhat similar. The major difference occurs in West Stockbridge, where their population,
Population
they have a
density.
smaller center and a lot more spread
Spread
out
out.
population.
Yeah.
And they actually have many, many more miles of roads, especially dirt roads, which
Yep.
seasonally can pose extreme challenges for response.
So
Interesting.
it's interesting because from what I recall from my time back east, the ratio of medical to fire is significantly is closer to even up here as opposed to there where we were anywhere from 3 to 5 times medical
Yeah.
over fire.
And that's what I'm used to with other towns
To
too.
the point where I remember when I would go and present at select board meetings and whatnot for the various towns, when the fire chief wanted me to weigh in on new equipment, that it was EMS that was supporting the fire department over fire calls. Now they were getting reimbursed for what they were doing, which I know we don't here, although has there been any movement? I know I basically submitted testimony for the bill that Lee has put in about making EMS an essential service.
I have not heard what the outcome of that. Last I knew, it was still being discussed. I don't know where it stands in terms of the state house on that. But I having been a career EMT and a volunteer firefighter before I took the career fire chief position here, I can tell you that I strongly 100% back that as an essential service, because
Oh, for sure.
you're on the same calls, you're doing the same job, you're taking the same risks in the same environments for the same duration. And if anything, on a lot of these calls where the fire and police end of it starts to dwindle off and you start to return back to normal, the EMS still
It's
has
still
the
there.
next step of
Absolutely.
transport and stabilization to the hospitals. So if anything, EMS ends up typically spending longer times with these calls than even the fire department does, or the police department, unless it's criminal or it takes a long-term index.
Right. Not to mention that EMS is supporting the police and fire for anything that happens to them, whether it's smoke inhalation for a firefighter or, a policeman that's injured. And no, I basically wrote a lengthy, she asked me if I would submit testimony after the Public Health Council had already looked over the bills, and they were still accepting testimony. And I hadn't heard anything from her office, so I didn't know if you had heard anything internally from, about what was going on with that.
Last I heard is it was approved to begin, I believe it was studies, like a study to see if it is logical to consider EMS an essential service, which
Yeah, I mean,
I think all of us know.
yes, it's an essential service, right, exactly. Yeah, all you need is somebody on the Public Health Council to basically have a heart attack and have EMS not there, to deal with them, and they suddenly realize it's an essential service.
Question, Stockbridge, West Stockbridge. Do we play a role on the Mass Pike with respect to response?
So this conversation came up at an officers meeting Monday night after our
There
business.
you go.
And currently with the setup as it is, West Stockbridge is treated independently of Stockbridge. The only thing we share is the command structure. So we are backup for one another through mutual aid requests, but if there's adequate staffing and equipment response from West Stockbridge on the pike,
It's going to be in the pipeline.
it will be the command structure that goes onto the pike beyond the apparatus. But
Currently,
currently,
but as the intermunicipal agreement evolves,
Right.
yes.
you'll have a greater role. Is that
And
correct?
during the day, when you have paid personnel on, those paid personnel are shared equally between the two municipalities. So we share response during the day. So whenever there is a paid crew on, automatically independent of West Stockbridge fire tones being set off, our pagers for the paid members also have West Stockbridge's fire tones in them so that they can answer the calls in the same time. So they would take the equipment out of Stockbridge Central Station that is appropriate for the level of response for that call. And then if other ancillary equipment beyond that is needed, we would do Stockbridge fire tones or whatever the run card for that particular incident calls for.
Thank you, Vinnie. That's important.
It's an evolving process. And we, like Michael had tried to emphasize during many meetings and presentations, the transition years are the most complicated years of this whole assignment. Because you're not quite fully 24/7, but you're not totally volunteer. So it's those middle years that we're going to have the greatest growth. Because we're going to learn the most of what's going on, from call volume to level of call, et cetera, to services we're going to need in the future. So it's a very interesting time. These next
So
few years.
as the agreement, as the system evolves, West Stockbridge it's my understanding that West Stockbridge starts to assume more and more of the financial burden of supporting this
So yes,
agreement.
the agreement is written so that operationally from this fiscal year moving forward, they're assuming a 40% percentage of certain elements of the whole operation. So they no longer are exempt from paying for the salaries of the paid crews and the new purchasing of equipment is at 40%. So it'll be 40% of salaries, 40% of equipment purchasing. So the biggest parts of this, the most money expansive parts are being shared. And the reason for the 60-40 split has to do with a complicated thing that I cannot explain adequately. How they break that down, Michael had all that in his presentation, but I don't have that knowledge of how that 60-40 split came about. But it was a multi-factor thing that they used to calculate that. And that's how it's supposed to remain for these transition years. At the end of that transition period, once 24-hour staffing and a full-time ambulance is on board, that's when the final long-term IMA is supposed to be drafted and negotiated between the two municipalities for carrying these services shared for many, many years to come after that. I believe it's up to 25.
Okay. Well, thank you. Anything else to add to the conversation?
I very much am a proponent for thinking outside the box when it comes to construction and getting the most bang for the buck. So if there is newer materials or a hybrid technology out there for the base space or the storage space versus the occupancy spaces, I'm all on board for becoming educated on what those are and considering those as part of the building features. I'm more concerned about its use versus its appearance.
I think when, down the road, when we eventually bring an architect on board, everyone will have a lot of opportunity to influence the design.
Well, the OPM and the whole process is going to come up with things.
Yeah.
And throw them out to you, and are these necessary or not? And so that'll evolve.
Yeah.
We're going to stay behind the scenes also figuring out versus what we have currently and what we believe we're going to need in the future to try and nail down some square footages too. like, we know we're gonna need a meeting space. We know, by requirements, certain things moving forward and by suggestions from OSHA and NFPA that we're gonna need gym facility. However, they don't always specify exactly what that entails for equipment. You know, we're not gonna be opening up a Planet
Yeah.
Fitness, but we need to have some type of facility.
Usually you have to provide a physical, you need to designate a space for it. Usually the equipment is purchased through of furnitures, fixtures and equipment, which is a soft cost of the project. So we, the town, determines, how much of a budget we have for those type of items. So, I mean, I remember when they built this building, the police have an area in here, or had, I don't know if it's still being used for physical fitness.
It's right.
Okay, it is.
It's on the other side of that door.
It used to be downstairs someplace, but yeah. So, yeah, and that's part of the program, that's one of those requirements, and, it's both addressed in OSHA and NFPA requirements.
And I'm.
The other thing I would submit to you, Vinnie, is you say you want to be in the shadows. You got to be upfront on some of this stuff.
Oh, no, I'm talking about
Because,
getting the
yeah,
calculations.
we don't want to
the
miss something
Yeah,
that,
no, I definitely.
it's
plan on-
important.
On being actively involved in this process.
Right.
We did,
So we certainly know what's wrong with the antiquated facilities that we have now. So
correct.
lessons learned, we don't want to do it this way again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most definitely, we want to improve upon what's working and eliminate what's not. So I.
And
I
be
think-
thinking ahead,
Exactly.
be thinking ahead, not just what we need for 2025, but what we need for 2030, 2035, and what we might need for that time period. So, because we don't want to be sitting here again in 2 or 3 years saying, well, we really should have done X, Y, and Z, and we didn't get to that. And we need to be thinking out of the box, as you said, Vinnie.
Exactly. And I think a lot of some of the stuff that we're talking about too, we may, because of the height of the Bay Area being significantly higher than what would be single-story occupancy on the other side, we may be able to bring the roof line on the other side up to the same plane and use that second story for storage stuff that doesn't require ADA access, so that you can use that space and not necessarily make your footprint so much larger.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can use that for certain things, storage, gym.
You could put the box up there.
Yeah, you can do certain things. So, and I would like to see that space. I mean, Barrington Station Design actually utilized a lot of that type of stuff. And I think some of the ones that you've been involved in have a lot of multi-use spaces.
Yeah, I mean, basically Lee and Williamstown are 2-story structures with, accommodations for fire and ambulance crews on the second floor, some training and meeting room space on second floors.
Yeah, I think that's a great use of space to stack on top, and you make your overall footprint a lot smaller that way, and you can
You'll need,
minimize your impact on the property.
you'll need decon facilities in there. You'll need office space.
Correct.
So many things add to that square footage.
Exactly. So the
That are
more we can stack
necessary.
On top of it itself, the better we're gonna be in the long run.
I don't remember if we've discussed this at all, but generator?
Yes, so I am going to, my suggestion, which may be well received or not, is that we stick with some type of fossil fuel generation of some kind as a backup generator only. So whether that be propane driven, which is what I would prefer if we don't have natural gas in that area. Otherwise, it would be natural gas supply generation, similar to what we have at Central Station currently.
Propane works well.
Yeah, I have a propane.
I have
I have a whole house
I like those
propane.
I got the
setups.
same thing.
The only reason I'm
Generac.
steering away from ESS in terms of backup storage
It helped during the tornado.
is
Yeah.
long-term incidents. It's easy to refuel a generator, but it's not easy to recharge an ESS.
Right.
If you're in inclement weather for a long period of time.
We may want to consider as plans develop, though, photovoltaics for,
Correct.
to reduce your energy load off the grid. And if there are opportunities that exist there, I think it'd be wise for.
I do as well. I think some of the green options that are out there, I don't know about gray water collection and that looks like, but some of those things that we're thinking about definitely could come into play. Because there are areas where non-potable water use is warranted, washing of apparatus, non-critical patient care areas, stuff like that. You can't wash the inside of the ambulance, but you can wash the outside of the ambulance with rainwater. It's not going to cause an issue. So there may be some things that we can do to minimize some of those concerns as well. And photovoltaics, I think, are a great option.
Who's Neil? What's that Neil's iPad?
Neil that just joined the Zoom meeting, could you identify yourself first and last name, please? They're not muted, are they?
Neil Haywood, Stockbridge Fire Department.
Okay, thank you, Neil.
Okay.
You know him, don't you?
Yeah, I think I made it. But I don't know his iPad, so I wanted to make sure about that.
Hi, Neil.
Okay.
All right, if no one else has any more on that topic, we'll move on. And it's great that Vinny's here for this one. In our first meeting, we held it in one of the central station in hopes that, we could have maybe some of the public would show up. I still think it's a good time to talk about having an open house to the public so they can see what the existing conditions are in the facilities that you have already been.
Correct.
And might want to do a series of those.
I think that would be appropriate. And I also would like it put on the record too, that I know the limitations of the community in which we serve. And a lot of them have seasonal residency or residency that alters depending on the week or month. So even if you're unable to make a scheduled event for an open house of any kind at either one of the three stations or all of the above, I can make myself available, as will some of the other volunteers and staff members can make themselves available to go through a building or a station with somebody who can't make these things. So I hope that the public realizes it's not a one-off event. We are available to assist and bring them through the stations and show them what we have and what we're looking to do at any given time, not just at a scheduled open house.
Peter, once we make a decision about when we're going to do this, I suspect Clarence would not be opposed to putting something in the Eagle to
Yeah, I think-
notify the public
We could reach
that
out.
we're,
We'll publicize this for sure.
Yeah, to
Not just-
publicize.
Not just on the town website. But,
Correct. But
with a
given
release.
that he took the initiative to report on the building, what we've talked about that the building would contain, I think it would be appropriate for him to say something like, well, on, whatever, September 22nd, we're, at the next meeting of the fire station committee, we'll be entertaining the public for a tour.
We have a very good relationship with Clarence.
Yeah.
We can give him a call.
Yeah, I think that would be a great way to get the word out.
Whatsoever.
I think October, November of this year before snow flies would be an appropriate place to do at least one open house of some kind, even if it's just an evening where people are invited to come through between a certain set amount of hours to come visit the stations, see the equipment, and go through. I don't think that that's unreasonable. We do have some events that are going on both townwide and otherwise that make it a little complicated in early October and mid-October. But I think early November is pretty wide open.
So Vinny, would you like an opportunity, we don't have to decide this tonight. Would you like an opportunity to look at the calendar, look at town events and so forth? And, send the committee an email
Yeah,
or
I can do that with some potential dates
let us know
and,
what would work
Yeah.
for you and the rest of the department.
Yeah, and there's apropos your comments about the plethora of part-timers, of second homeowners that are here. There's a second homeowners group.
Association, right.
And Sandy Barron basically looks at the Eagle and Edge every single day and basically posts things that are relevant to the second homeowner. She actually put Clarence's article on that notification email that she sent out. And so that would be a good way for us to make sure that the second homeowners also hear about the opportunity to come and take a look at the central station and so
Yeah,
on.
we can notify, other newsletter type things that get circulated. Carol Owens, Stockbridge updates would be a place that.
Yep.
And we put it on the town website. too.
Yes, of course we.
exactly. And I'm also considering down the road to learn some new technology of my own and figure out how I could do a virtual tour for people who are unable to be present. That doesn't look like somebody ran down the road with a video camera from the 80s.
Right.
So that's nice and stable and you don't get dizzy watching. But it'll take a little bit of learning on my end to get the technology there. But my goal is down the road to be able to do that so that people that are unable to be present will be able to see what we're discussing.
Yep.
All right, so we'll wait to hear back from you on some potential dates. And then we can, we'll discuss them and then we'll get the word out. Next steps. I think our next step is continue to work with Michael on the OPM.
I think that's good.
And then identifying whoever's going to be doing the feasibility study
And
and
let's get them in and talk to them.
All right. Neil, you're the only Neil Haywood, you are the only member of the public attending online right now. You have any comments for the meeting?
Oh, sorry, got home late and eating late, so I did not catch the first part, but I'll look at the minutes later. So I'm just catching up. So no comments at this time.
Okay, anything from anybody else?
I strongly support your reaching out to involve the select board at this point. Because I know that both Michael and the select board are getting questions from public and comments and some people are a little nervous given location selection and everything. And I think bringing them in sooner than later would benefit everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's plain that we're not getting too specific. We just know the area that we're thinking is the best. And,
There are options.
there are options. There are a lot of options out there. And, we'll follow up, but nothing will be, we're a very open meeting group here. You can access us. We've been meeting every 2 weeks. And I think we should stay on that schedule, Scott. So what would we have for the next meeting?
2 weeks would put us the 24th of September.
What, 24th?
24th?
Is that good for you? Same time?
Let's see.
Yeah, it's the end of the second day of Rosh Hashanah, but it's the end of the second day of Rosh Hashanah, so. The holiday's not formally over yet, but,
I mean, if you,
Can we do the 25th or no?
To the Thursday.
it's just- that's fine, but don't you have a conflict on Thursdays, Bruce?
Sometimes I actually, that particular Thursday, I actually have a doctor's appointment in Boston on the 25th, so I don't know if I'll be back in time.
We want to push it to the October 1st, then, that next Wednesday?
That is Yom Kippur.
Oh, I have that on the 2nd, sorry.
We're heading into the Jewish holiday season. It's, gets a little complicated.
It's tighter.
Well, you could do the 8th if you wanted,
Or
October. Is that too far out?
Monday or Tuesday, the 29th or 30th. So we could do Monday or Tuesday?
That's fine with,
I could do that.
Scott?
I think Monday would be excellent. We already have drill, most of us have already set that time aside.
Monday evenings.
You want?
Monday the 29th?
Yes,
yeah, sounds great.
okay,
5 again?
5 o'clock, it seems to work for everyone.
Assuming this room's available.
Yeah, and Scotty will confirm with Michael and book it immediately.
okay, the 12th, September 29, 5 PM, 5 o'clock.
Yep.
Sounds great.
Okay, that'll work fine.
Okay.
Shall we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Very good.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.